Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and in today's video I'm going to try and make the Jagdtiger 88 roar once again. Now how am I going to do that? Well, it's all about picking equipment and field modifications that are going to mitigate some of the tank's weaknesses but also maximize some of its strengths. So when I think Jagdtiger 88, I think big old meaty boy, 1500 base hit points, and so I'm going to slap on something to stack that all the way up to 1620. We're going to use improved hardening. This will increase our vehicle's hit points, but also it will allow us to keep our tracks up more often because our suspension durability will be increased, and we're also going to be able to repair the tracks quicker as well. I think a vehicle like this that has a great rate of fire needs to make sure that it keeps its gun on its opponents, and by buffing up our tracks in that way, we're going to be able to achieve that. In addition, this vehicle has a very lackluster engine power. It's below 10 until you start to improve it. I'm going to slap a turbo on this vehicle, which is going to buff the top speed limit of 42 forwards and up to 18 backwards. And our power to weight ratio is now going to be in a slightly better position. Next, I'm also going to use a gun rammer on this tank, because why wouldn't I want to take one of the best damage per minutes on any tier 8 tank and pump it up? This vehicle is only second to the Turtle with regards to damage per minute at tier 8. Next, I'm going to let you know one of the most important things that you will ever take on any tank destroyer, and the Jagdtiger 88 is no exception. The second field mod, reinforced suspension, is mandatory. I'm going to lean back just so you can actually manage to see that. 30% suspension durability, so we're going to keep our tracks on more often, and importantly, 15% maintaining speed when crossing all terrain types. Don't worry about this traverse speed. That actually gets countered by the improved ground resistances of the 15% maintaining speed when crossing all terrain types. This makes the Jagdtiger ludicrously quick. So here we go, we're rolling out in the worst possible matchmaking on the highway map, and that is because this vehicle has preferential matchmaking. It always surprises me when a vehicle is this robust with this much damage per minute and it has that good matchmaking that it never has to meet any tier 10 tanks. Unfortunately, there aren't going to be any juicy tier 7s or tier 6s for us to be able to prey on, but if we can perform in the Jagdtiger 88 in this scenario, then of course it should be obvious that we're going to perform against the lower tier tanks. So immediately, notice just how quick the Jagdtiger 88 is with this field modification, and also the turbo on the tank. It takes a slow, cumbersome vehicle to now kind of getting into position as fast as some of the faster heavies, and we're kind of almost even keeping up with the Centurion 7-1. Sure, vehicles like the Emil 1951 and the T10 are ploughing way ahead of us until they crash into a building, and I have a little look to my right to see what they're up to. Maybe they're trying to visit the hotel or the drugstore, the carpet store, any of the furniture stores that are along our right in this street. But what we're going to do is use the awesome new top speed limit of the Jagdtiger, the improved ground resistances, and that extra grunt in the engine to be able to race forwards. And I'm sorry, but it really doesn't look like a tank that weighs 70 tons should be able to go this quickly. And spoilers, not in this video, but if you do take the vehicle out onto the battlefield yourself, ramming things with this tank can prove to be very effective indeed. Now look, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for the Jagdtiger 88. There's a reason why this vehicle is packing a very low average win ratio, and that is 47.5% across the European server. And I'm just not sure what I'm more surprised about. The fact that we've taken this elephant and turned it into more of a ballet dancer, or the fact that the elephant managed to cross the street and get into position unspotted. And that allows us to spot out the Carnarvon Action 10 and even be in a position to go after them. Now we bounced 2 gold rounds there, one from the Emil 2 and one from the IS-6. You can actually kind of side scrape in a vehicle like this. It's very useful to do so because you do hang your gun more over the corner of the vehicle, and that means there's less of a lower plate for them to be able to go through. And right now, I am literally just showing off at what kind of mobility this vehicle has. Look how quickly this thing is turning. It still baffles me that the Jagdtiger 88 with the field mods and a turbo, and of course clutch braking and ground resistances and all of that kind of thing with off-road driving, although this is hard terrain so off-road driving won't affect it, can just pirouette on the spot like that. and I was already starting to get excited. I believe this was the first game on this tank where I had actually unlocked the field mod, and I was already starting to enjoy the mobility. And you're going to see just how far we're going to be able to travel in this game. Unfortunately, for everything that I've done to try and maximize the possibilities of the Jagdtiger 88 to roar once again, unfortunately, it doesn't improve its armor. This vehicle's armor is very lackluster, incredibly so on the lower plate. Its upper hull is usually good against tier 6s and tier 7s, and sometimes when you're using some of your gun depression on this vehicle. But more often than not, this thing is a big box of hit points that even about 250 millimeters of penetration will be able to go through the cheeks, which is the superstructure, which is meant to be the best part. So I'm being incredibly cheeky here, and I'm just locking this 257 down. I know I can't penetrate him reliably, so instead, why don't I fire one shell at his hull, one shell at his tracks, one shell at his hull, and then I'm going to fire regular rounds at his tracks. One of the benefits of having a very low caliber gun, like on the Jagdtiger 88 here, is that the rounds are practically free. I believe they're about 250 credits a pop, and so I can just lock down the 257's tracks here and just hold him still and just be bloody annoying. When, look what's happening, the on-slewing autoloaders and the heavy tanks now catch the 257's tracks, and we're able to get 1,700 spotting and tracking already at the start of this game. Look, I'm not really managing to clap in all of the damage in this scenario. Again, worst possible matchup, and just one of those kind of fights where I kind of want to look after my hit points for a little bit later on in the battle. But what we have been able to do is turn this thing into more of a support vehicle with its mobility. And if we can try and use that outrageous rate of fire to lock down our opponents in a support scenario, then we can still be effective against more dangerous tanks, like auto-loading Swedish heavy tanks that are a higher tier than us that started the game firing heat, or an Object 257. That's the nightmare scenario for the Jagdtiger 88, but by increasing the mobility of the vehicle, the traverse speed, and also, while still not sacrificing the great rate of fire that the vehicle has, we can lock down our opponents. Now, any of you who have seen me play a Tortoise will know just how much I love to shoot at players' tracks when I'm playing that tank, to be able to advance the situation, to then be able to try and shoot their tracks while also damaging their tank. And the Jagdtiger, with this newfound amount of mobility, and I would argue almost kind of unbalanced levels of mobility, is able to do just what the Tortoise does, or what the Turtle does at tier 8. Of course, I think that the Turtle's going to be the better tank, but the Jagdtiger 88, able to go literally 15 kilometers an hour faster than the Turtle, definitely puts it in contention, especially so considering the vehicle has got that preferential matchmaking. He never has to meet tier 10 tanks. So in this scenario, we're going to become a bit of a machine gun here with the Jagdtiger 88, with just a sub 5-second reload on this vehicle. It just seems absolutely outrageous how much you can fire. And I can see that I'm still hitting the T-54 Mod 1, and we just kept him tracked to allow us to continue to advance around the hull of the WT Alpha Panzer IV, and we shut down that tank, securing our second kill of the game. And just look at this thing's mobility. It isn't a 70-ton super heavy at this stage. It is more of a faster heavy, or like a medium. Now, I'd say like a medium speed heavy with this kind of a setup. I'm chugging along here at 40 kilometers an hour. Going to go slightly upslope now, which is going to slow me down, but then again, back up to speed. Wargaming's balancing department, sometimes I just really question what they are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have no idea why they would ever consider to give tank destroyers 30% extra durability on their tracks, as well as 15% improved ground resistances. That field mod revolutionizes the way that you can play your tank destroyers, and I'm just starting to discover how powerful they can be. Irrelevant of how powerful your tank destroyers can be with that extra field mod, the first choosable field mod on the vehicle, doesn't really matter if we're bouncing off the Progetto 46 there. And I guess that's one of the reasons why a lot of people dislike the Jagdtiger 88, is because it's got 212 millimeters of penetration on its standard rounds and only 237 on its premium rounds. So yeah, good luck dealing with the front of most big, bulky, heavy tanks. And so I think that's why I've decided to maximize the hit points of this vehicle, so I can go toe-to-toe with them for longer, improve the tracks of the vehicle so they can't lock me in place, and maximize the mobility of the vehicle so I can progress the situation to turn the engagement into a scenario where it doesn't matter if I don't have the best alpha damage, it doesn't matter if I don't have the best penetration, and I'm going to be able to go to town on them with the DPM to be able to lock them in place and then be able to still penetrate their vehicle, probably from the side, while hopefully weathering their damage to be able to get into position. And I just can't believe how far we've driven in the Jagdtiger 88 so far. I'm going to try and remember to check it in the post-game statistics. But unlike all of the other heavies who are kind of like just chilling in base, including the G-Saw now, having just won the town, we went into the town, we went back again, now we're over to the western part of the map, now we're going to advance south along it. We must have already driven at least about 3 kilometers, considering this map is 1 kilometer squared. So ISU 152K in position. I'm thinking like, this is my time to shine. Finally I get to unleash my DPO. Yeah, not much DPM dealt there to the ISU 152K. Unfortunately for me, as the MIL 1951 bursts out their Swedish magazine. So this would usually be the stage where I'm really frustrated in the Jagdtiger, because now it would take me forever to be able to get into position. And while, look, I'm not trying to pretend that this vehicle is now some kind of Italian sports car around the battlefield. It's not like it's just suddenly turned into a wheeled tank and it's racing up to its opponents to deliver that fatal blow. Yeah, that'd be fairly interesting if a tank could drive 70 tons and be able to do that. Oh wait, that's pretty much already the Object 268 version 4, right? I forget. Of course it's Soviet and not German, right? But I'm not so frustrated playing the Jagdtiger 88 like this, because I know that even after those missed opportunities, I'm still going to be able to catch up with the team to be able to play the game some more. And it has changed this tank from an absolute lumbering beast into a bit of a powerhouse. Unlike the Tortoise, I would say, which when I put a Bond turbo on that thing became outrageously overpowered. I feel like the Jagdtiger, I think I'll be definitely pushing the boundaries, or maybe not telling exactly 100% of the truth. As if I've got some reason to like try and portray the Jagdtiger 88 as a really good tank. But it's not as good as a Tortoise with the increased mobility that you get from the field mods. But it definitely changes this tank from being an absolute stinker into something which is actually a bit of a weird one and kind of quite fun to play. I like this kind of feeling that you're a bit of a Wolverine, just fighting it out in a scenario like this, that you're just continuously firing, and you're just hoping that your armor works, but also still now having that mobility to be able to harass. And I'm so confident, I know these rounds are so cheap, that we're just going to fire 2 blind shots, going to zoom out to see if I can see where the shells are going. It looks like I was locking in place as I managed to shut down the WZ-111-1FT there with 3 blind fires, I believe, into their lower plate. Now the UDES is trying to get away from the situation. We put 1 round into the side of the UDES. Now we aim down towards the Stridsvagn 1030. Sorry, the Foch there, apologies. And now we're going to hopefully deal with the Stridsvagn 1030. Again, aiming down towards the UDES. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to auto-aim at the UDES while locking down his tracks, kill the UDES, while now aiming at the Stridsvagn 1030. And here we go. Stridsvagn 1030. We're going to lock down his tracks. Why not? I got the great rate of fire. I can't pen you frontally unless I hit your weak point, but why don't I just lock you in place? And he repairs his tracks there, as we can see. We're going to fire another round into them, and we're going to fire 1 more round into them, and then we're going to maneuver into position to hopefully be able to finish the player off. But why do I even need to? Why do I need to finish them off myself when I can get 1,500 tracking in that scenario and let the team do it for me? Although I had that vehicle completely locked down in that 1 versus 1 scenario, so that even if my team hadn't been there to shoot him, I would have been able to destroy the vehicle myself. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. The Jagdtiger 88, roaring once more. So for the longest time, I absolutely despised this tank, and I would never take it out onto the battlefield. I think somebody actually gifted it to me on my account, knowing that I would probably hate the vehicle. But after modifying the tank recently in the way that I've suggested, yeah, I've even started to maybe enjoy it just a little bit. And we get our first mark of excellence, something that we're going to hopefully add on to in the upcoming weeks or months. So this was an ace tanker for the Jagdtiger 88, 1,676 base experience. And I guess I wasn't the only player who had a good game here. The Emil, 1951, dealing nearly 6,000 damage, although getting less base experience than us. Two completely different tanks, albeit synergizing in this battle beautifully. Me taking the Jagdtiger 88 and turning it into this kind of like pseudo-assault support tank, while the Emil being the classic Swedish damage dealer. And while we did fire a few gold rounds in this game, because your armor-piercing rounds only cost 252 credits a shot, we still make 120,000 credits profit. So the Jagdtiger 88, do I think it's now the best tier 8 tank destroyer? Hell to the no! You'd be far better to play a TS5 or a Turtle. However, if you don't have either of those vehicles and you want to surprise your opponents, maybe you have one of these even gathering dust inside your garage, give it a dust off, set the vehicle up like this, and while you're probably still going to have a few stinky games, you might also have a few fun ones. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know if you love the Jagdtiger 88. And if you do, why? Or do you hate it as much as I do, at least until recently? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.